We are in week 4 of culture engagement. Last week we heard from Sophia Thomas, and we're just going to continue to build off of this. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about is we'll keep reminding about the framework or the foundation of culture engagement, and then we'll keep building upon. All right, so a quick review. Worldviews aren't simply philosophical statements. They're not just a statement that we say, that we put up maybe on a wall or in a document. They are frameworks that shape our reality. They are molded, so worldviews are molded by stories, right? And oftentimes these stories, these things we believe, are given to us or experienced as children. A lot of the stories that we grew up believing about how the world works and who God is and humanity and right and wrong, those stories are really shaped and formed in those years as a child, in our childhood and adolescence. And sometimes we don't engage with them any further from that. We just kind of keep believing those same stories. So worldviews are molded by stories, rituals or habits, maybe is a word we would say more frequently, so habits, and symbols. So these symbols, whether these icons, objects, or things that we can look at that represent a certain worldview. Worldviews tell a grand narrative. They are the lens we filter each moment through that we experience. And this is why you can have a community or even a local church when there's something that happens in culture or there's something that happens in a church. This is why you can have two people who are part of the same church, who both follow Jesus, that can have very different reactions to something that has happened. Now, we get kind of like, how could this be? How could this thing in culture happen and you think this and I think this, right? I mean, recently, right, there are things in our government, decisions that our government has made, policies that are being passed, that people in our church have very different opinions about. And usually they're very emotionally charged. How could that be, right? They both say, Waymaker Church is our home. They both say, I follow Jesus. And man, they are saying very different things because they have different worldviews. They filter a decision from the government or something in culture through the lens of their worldview, and then it forms their actual words and their emotions and their actions, which is why we have to understand worldviews. Because then it not only lets us grow as followers of Jesus to make sure we're continuing to submit that before our King Jesus, but it also helps us lead other people. Where it lets us be more empathetic towards other people, not so judgmental. We can understand why they're thinking that way, why they're feeling that way, and not just kind of put them to the side. Worldview ultimately informs how we engage in culture, and we know that, man. Some churches, they engage in culture in some maybe negative ways simply because of their worldview, not necessarily because of what they believe about Jesus or God, but because of their worldview. So the question we have to be asking is, does our worldview lead us to critique and consume? Right? So we've been talking about the two opposite extremes, to either critique and just point the finger at our culture and say you're wrong, or consume, where there's no sense of like wisdom or guardrails, or we have to think through stuff. It's just like, let's consume, right? Critique and consume. Or does our worldview lead us to contend, to fight for, to pray for, and to create culture? Where does it lead us? If we are going to be a people who contend and create for the kingdom of God, if we're going to help others create and contend, we have to understand stories, rituals or habits, and symbols. We have to understand what role that they play. And what I'm going to help us to see specifically in this teaching is how we participate in rituals and habits every day that help shape and form us, but also how the church, how part of our church, our role is to help people participate in certain rituals and habits that shapes and forms them, that we already do, and it's just putting a different light on it.